Who isn't? Okay, on your batch, you multiplied x minus 3 and x plus 3. You should have got x squared minus 9. The middle term here and the outer term here are opposites. So you end up with no middle term. This is called the difference of two perfect squares. In the next chapter, you're going to learn how to factor. And when you see two perfect squares, you can automatically put plus and minus, square root the first term, square root the second term. And that's going backwards. For example, let's say you have 4x to the fourth minus 49. That is a perfect square because you could take the square root of it. That is a perfect square because you could take the square root of it. You will learn that it's always plus minus because there's no middle term. Take the square root of 4x to the fourth. Anybody? 2x squared. Write it twice. Square root of 49. If you multiply that out, you get that. It's a shortcut, and you should be able to see every single time. Eventually you will because you get so many of them. So if I have x plus 10, x minus 10, x squared minus 100. Because the middle term and the outer term are opposites. And they end up with no middle term. Okay, but you got to remember how to take square roots of numbers to do this. Like, what's the square root of 16, x to the 9th, you're going to get that one wrong, y to the 6th, z squared. Does anybody know the square root of 16 is?
4.
Square root of?
X squared plus something.
Okay, that's not a perfect square.
Yeah.
We can't do it. Well, we can, but we're not going to get that complicated.
Yeah, I thought you would do that.
You got to have a perfect square. The exponent has to be even. Okay? Just want to see if you're awake. X to the 6th, y to the 8th. What's the square root of 16?
4.
What's the square root of x to the 6th? X to the 3rd. Square root of y to the 8th? Y to the 4th. You just have to cut these in half. Think about it. You have square root of x to the 6th. A lot of kids say, well, that's not a perfect square. Sure it is. X to the 6th is x cubed times x cubed. So the square root of x to the 6th is x cubed. All right? So, if I have 6x minus 5, 6x plus 5. What's the answer without working it out? 36 x squared minus 25. You don't have to know that yet, but it's nice to know it, that it comes out that way every time because these are opposites. All right? What if I asked you to go backwards? And I won't on the test or anything because that's the next chapter. What if I have 100x squared minus, I need a perfect square, 9. Where did that come from?
That'd be 10x on both sides. And then plus 3.
Plus 3
Minus 3.
minus 3. That's the next chapter. Factoring the difference of two perfect squares, yes.
So all you gotta do is divide by a perfect square.
You take the square root. You're not
Yes.
dividing. Square root. You have to think what times what is 100? What times what is x squared? What times what is 9? Anyway, it's a shortcut. And I'm going to show you also a perfect square trinomial. Now this is something that kids struggle with because they don't notice it. But I'm going to show you two perfect square trinomials because that was number 2 and number 3. One of them is with plus, and one of them is minus. But you got x squared minus, right? You wrote it like this, I hope.
Yeah.
And you got x squared minus 6x plus 9. Didn't you?
Yeah.
And this one you should have got x squared plus 6x plus 9. See the difference? The difference is when it's minus, you got to have a negative here. Okay, here's how you tell if it's a perfect square trinomial. What is the square root of that?
X.
What is the square root of that?
3.
Take it times 2. What do you get?
6x.
Always.
You don't get negative though.
Well, no. I'll show you in a minute. Square root of that,
X.
square root of that,
3.
double it.
6.
Right. Now, when you're going backwards in the next chapter, you're going to automatically do the square root of that and the square root of that, and then you're going to make a decision. Is it plus or is it minus? It's always the same thing twice. This one is going to be minus because there's a negative here. This one, square root, square root, square root, square root, and it's going to be plus because there's a plus there. So let me give you one. Tell me if you, now you don't have to know how to factor, but let's see if you could, if you had to. What if I have 4x squared plus 56x plus 49? It's the same thing twice. What's the square root of that?
2x.
Square root of that? They're both plus. No, I did it wrong.
You did.
Yeah, what
That's
is,
28.
yeah.
I'm not very good with numbers, sorry. No,
Not like a math teacher or anything.
no, I'm an imposter. I got my degree online from Walmart.
You are
It's so
ghetto.
little.
Wait, you can throw me up.
No. Square that.
Squared.
X squared.
Boy.
X squared. My fault.
Go home.
Square that.
60.
What's that times 2?
A squared. I mean,
And then you decide what the signs are.
plus.
Plus, B plus.
It's a shortcut. Don't use it for this. I showed this today, and I had one kid that did, okay, this was like the check for understanding, and he tried to use a shortcut. They're not even the same numbers.
This
It only works when it's the same thing times itself, okay? Don't do anything crazy. All right? Shortcut.
Nine x squared. Plus.
You can put the 16 here first. It's easier. Now, that times that doubled.
24 x.
No minus.
Oh.
Only way you're going to have minus is there. You're not going to have it here. Why?
Because of minus plus one.
Negative times negative is positive.
Wow, throw it back to third.
So when you have this next chapter, you say to yourself, oh, I got a perfect square here and a perfect square here. If I double it, do I have that? And if the answer is yes, automatically square root, done. Only it's minus, right? So it's the same thing twice. I'm just kind of preparing you for the next chapter. This is not that important. But I do want you to be able to recognize, do you have a perfect square trinomial? So x squared plus, these are hard to think of, 14x plus 49. Is that a perfect square trinomial?
No.
Yes.
Because it's 14 x. Can't do anything with 14 x. Actually, yes, you can. That is because it's going to be x plus 7. Because when you multiply by 2, you get 14 x.
Yep, it is 1. Because the square root of that times the square root of that times 2 is that. That's how you tell if it is 1 or not. It's a very good thing for you to know if it is 1 or not. It's going to help you tremendously in chapter 8. Okay, yes or no?
Whoa, okay. Okay, it's gonna be 8.
Yes. Wait, yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
7 times 8 times, or 8 times 7 is 56.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're tricking me. Chill out, bro.
The answer is no.
I knew it, because you
Oh.
can't get 56.
Because you don't get 56 when you double it.
Yes.
That is the most common error, to just say, oh yeah, 8x, 7, 56,
Jiggity darn.
doubled. What would this have to be to make it 1?
14. I mean, everyone's not.
Doubled. 56 was too small. Okay, ready for check for understanding?
Sure. Add one Snapchat S and 0 to E hyphen rings.
I'm good.
Hey, you can turn that off, it's not much